Let everybody else.
Do you want to let everyone in?
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than one in the room.
No, they're interested. I'm just going to do the opening remarks. So welcome to the February Design Review Committee meeting. We are in an unexpected room because we're having trouble with the electricity in the other room. Can everyone hear us all right and see everything? Okay, thank you. I'm going to call the roll to confirm that our DRC members are present. Amari Davis.
Here.
Thank you. Robert Dudka is not present tonight. Rebecca Meyer.
Here.
Thank you. And Andrew Winter.
Here.
Great. DRC meetings are being held in person and streamed simultaneously. For those of us joining us tonight, please keep your devices muted and your video turned off until your item is being heard. Meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance. The public may observe the meetings, but participation in the discussion is limited to applicants and members of the HLRB. Public comment is welcome at the HLRB meeting. Information about signing up to speak or submitting a public comment for that meeting is available on the HLRB website. And finally, this is a public forum. Today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. And so with that, our first item is in Maywood. It is a request to replace wooden windows at 3508 21st Avenue North for Mr. Anderson. If I can get this full screen. Mr. Anderson, are you with us tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Lovely. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so Mr. Anderson has submitted these images. Well, this is an example of the new product. Marvin was not able to submit images of the 1/1s, but he has submitted images of the windows that we would be replacing. And these are based on the design guidelines that were approved last year. This would be considered a standard or typical window because it is 1/1. These are all solid wood windows and they would be replaced by Marvin wooden windows. These are the measured drawings. The profiles are meant to match. They are solid wood, and there's also one casement that's being replaced. Here are specs on the profiles. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Anderson?
No, unless there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions. I guess just to give maybe a quick little bit of background, as everybody can see, there was an addition put on the house in 2009. So that addition has all new windows. And at that time, the existing windows in the old part of the house, the original part of the house, were refurbished. And that it worked as best as it could be done. And honestly, now they've degraded rapidly and they no longer function very well. And so that's the purpose for the replacement at this time.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have questions about what was passed in the guidelines or anything? Were you able to review them?
I don't see any problem.
No?
No, I think it's good.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, based on what we recently passed in the guidelines, I don't see a problem with this replacement in kind either. No.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Meyer?
Agreed with everything that has been said. I think it's super helpful having the drawings with it. So thank you for providing that.
Great, thank you. So do we think this could be placed on which agenda?
I think so.
Consent?
Mm-hmm.
I would say consent.
All right, I will note.
Consent, I would agree. Consent.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Anderson, I will follow up with information about your item. It's going to be placed on the consent agenda, which is the first thing that is heard in the HLRB meeting in 2 weeks. I will let you know in advance if there have been any comments or if anyone has asked any questions about the in-kind window replacement. And I'll follow up with any additional information. Do you have any questions for us?
No, only, I guess, any requirements for that meeting, any additional information, or if I understand the process correctly, this is somewhat simple from here. Is that correct?
That's it. I have everything I need. And so I will submit exactly the same packet to the full board, and you don't have to submit any other information.
Okay, and do you need me present for that meeting as well?
You are welcome to call in. Since your item is on consent, staff can represent you if needed. If we have any questions in advance, there is a comment period where someone could ask a question and then a commissioner can pull it anytime up to the vote, but staff could represent you in that case. And
Okay.
Appendix, it should be straightforward.
Okay, so yeah, if there's no problem, it could very well be that I'm on travel at that time and might not be able to attend, but I certainly appreciate everyone's assistance here, and I'll do everything I can to attend if it's possible.
Great, and I will send you your stamp plans the day after the meeting if it is approved.
Awesome, super. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving quickly along. So I'd written Matt was coming, but Mr. West is here for our second item, which is the final door schedule for the Sears rehabilitation at 3421 21st Avenue. Full screen mode. So an initial door schedule had been submitted, and since then the 4 doors on the main home have been changed: front, side, rear of the main floor, and the basement level door. So this is the Wexford model. Just I wanted to show that because you can kind of see the front door in the image. It's coming through. So these are the stamped plans. So here you can see that the doors that were approved. These are the doors that are being submitted. I don't know why, there had been little notes saying what these were for. No, there aren't. So I believe this is for the front door.
Yes.
This is for the side and rear doors on the main floor.
Correct.
And then the clearest pane with the 15 lights is for the basement.
That's absolutely right. Yes.
Perfect.
Is that is different than the one online. The one online has the notes. The first one with the half light is the basement, and then the full light is the rear and side door of the main floor.
Okay.
Is that flipped?
Thank you.
I
I must have marked them wrong.
the comment is right. Sorry about that.
Okay, so.
Online is correct.
Okay. So this is still the front door, and then this is the basement door is the
Half-light.
half light. Okay,
Yes.
that makes more sense
It
because
does.
then
Yeah. My apologies.
these are the doors that are going to be facing onto the public spaces. So these doors, this is the door to the courtyard kind of patio space in the back.
That's right.
And the screened porch on the side.
That's right.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And these are still all solid wood?
They are.
Great. So questions?
I don't see any problems with this. I think it's a really nice set of drawings, and
Well, that's
I'm
the
really
best,
glad to
so-
see what it's gonna.
We're
look like
excited
in
about
the
this. It's the first kind of restoration project like this that we've done. Our goal, the owner's been great, and the architect, Matt, who made the drawings, is fantastic. When you stand in front of the house on 21st, our goal is for it to look as close to what it looked like 91 years ago when it was built, when we're done in April or May. And so far we're doing really well. We're even doing geothermal, so there's not even going to be an outdoor unit out there on this property. It's going to look really, really close to what it looked like all that time ago. Stuff inside, on the other hand, it's a different story, but it's going to be awesome. But and we appreciate everybody's, going along with us here. It's the doors, they're in bad shape, and so allowing us to do this will increase the comfort and thermal properties and energy efficiency of the space, and along with the usability of it as well, while maintaining the nature of the historical nature of the doors at the same time. So we appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer, how do you feel about the proposed doors?
I don't see any issues with them. I think it's great going back to what the original was and having that documentation.
Thank you. And Commissioner Davis?
I would agree. I see no problem at all with the doors. They all seem appropriate for the usages.
Thank you. So which agenda would you like to put them on?
I'd recommend consent.
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay. All right. Okay, so same information for you. I will send you more information about what the process is, but you will be placed on the consent agenda where all the consent items are voted on block. There's a comment period for people to make comments if they have any, members of the public or the commission. You are welcome to attend. There will not be any need for you to speak unless it's pulled from consent to discussion. And if you cannot attend, then staff can represent you.
Thank you.
All right.
I
Thank you.
think it should be commended for the geothermal.
Oh yeah, it's interesting.
So,
And
Yeah, it's not
so I
really-
could get on the record since the committee's here. It was an excellent decision in my mind to allow double pane windows and doors in Maywood. It's I think it's a thoughtful consideration with respect to climate change and occupant comfort and safety and energy efficiency and thermal efficiency and all the rest of it. So it's making a big difference in this house in particular. So we appreciate that. So I just want to get on the record and say that. Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
Take care. See you.
Bye. Thank you. Okay.
Rebecca let us know that she has to step away for a few minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you. So this is project number 3. This is the return of a project on Kenmore Street, 2317. This is an amendment to an addition on the rear. Heidi Fitzharris for the Schmidts, Becky and TR Schmidt. So they came to us last year, or 2021 maybe is when they first got it approved, for the replacement of an existing addition in the rear to be replaced by a slightly larger addition. And since then they have realized that in order to get the right head height for code, they're going to have to raise the ridge line by 4 feet. And so here's the original existing front elevation, and then this is the 4 feet raised ridge line, and you'll see the chimney also will need to be raised to match and then be 2 feet higher than anything within 10 feet by code. In addition, they are requesting to put a shed dormer on the rear, which will span almost the width of the property in order to provide that additional head height for the second story.
so this was a story and a half structure, and it's going to become basically a 2-story structure? Is that what you're saying?
I believe so. Mrs. Fitzharris, are you on the line? Or any of the...
Yes, hello. I'm here. This is Heidi Fitzharris. I'm sorry. I am driving carpool right now, so I'm just calling in instead. I'm not at the computer. So actually, the house right now has an attic with a pull-down stair. And Becky and TR, the owners, own the house next door, and then they bought this house when it came on the market last year. And they were trying to renovate it for their grandmother to move in. So we were really focusing on the first floor. Right now, there's no basement access from the inside. There is an outside areaway, and there's no interior stair at all. So in our design, we submitted we decided to create an interior stair to go down to the basement and then up to the second level, which officially is an attic. And we were trying to do it basically bare bones because the budget's really tight. But by the time, so I noted a bunch of things and highlighted saying this isn't to code. And then when we submitted it for permit, the inspector came back and said, well, by the time you put in an interior stair that goes up there instead of the pull down, then you can't do that unless you do have the ceiling height, unless you have the egress, you need the insulation. Basically, by creating an interior stair to that space, then it triggers all these other code requirements. So we can't just claim, oh, it's existing. So therefore, we had a new design to have to create it as an actual habitable space rather than just storage. And then we're proposing to do 2 bedrooms and a bathroom up there to make it more useful. There's also something in the basement too. We are putting in an egress window in the basement now too, just into that. It used to be called the laundry area. So it's just one window and a little area, window well. Also because by the time, even though there's not egress out of the basement now, again, the inspector said that we'll have to bring everything up to code. Did that all make sense?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Winchell, do you have a comment?
Well, I mean, I think that, could we see an elevation of the front?
Of the front?
Yes. See, I think this does change the appearance of the house considerably. And I think that needs to be recognized. I'm not sure because of that. I think I'm not opposed to it, but I think that my recommendation would be that the board review it because it is a significant change to the facade. It changes the appearance of the house, not drastically, but it does change the appearance of the front facade significantly because of the raised roof.
Yeah. So that included some images of the streetscape, just because it is similar to the houses next to it, but this does have a lower roof ridge line right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, because if we wanted to retain some continuity, at least we know that currently it has a slightly, it's the house on the left, it does have a slightly lower ridge line, so it may not be, if they were to add a little bit of height, it might not be too problematic. Amari, how do you feel about this?
I would agree with Andy. It definitely will change the look of the house, but I think, but I do think though that sort of given the context of the sort of houses on the block, it won't necessarily change. I mean, it'll be higher and a little more massive look, but at the same time, the actual look of the house is sort of remaining somewhat similar because there aren't any real changes to the sort of front facade itself. To the overall character of the front facade. So, I mean, I think it's probably, and also sort of given the code implication reasons why I think that just kind of thinking about that and also thinking about that we'd previously approved, I guess, a more modest changes to the house. These are there's sort of nexus between sort of what we previously approved and these current changes now. So I think just sort of given the totality of that, I think it's appropriate. I mean, it may want to go before the full board. I'm not sure about. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I personally think the changes are okay. It's just sort of given the totality of everything that's considered here.
Could I respond? I mean, I think the reason I would say it should go to the board for their comment and concurrence is it is a change from what was a 1.5-story structure to a much more imposing front roof elevation on the facade, and it changes it from a 1.5-story bungalow, if you will, to something that's basically a 2-story house.
Okay, so it sounds like even though there are no like major objections, you still think that it should go to the board for full discussion on the discussion agenda in 2 weeks. But you don't need any additional materials. You think this is enough?
No, I think
No.
the board needs to review, just because it's changed from a 1.5-story bungalow to a 2-story house, or apparently a 2-story house.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Davis, do you agree?
Yes, I agree with that as well. I think it'll be good to get before the board, and I also agree that there's enough information there that the board can make a decision based on the information provided. I think it's a pretty good set of drawings and images, so should be good to review for the board.
Okay, Rebecca, are you back?
Sorry, I caught the second half. I would agree with everything that's been stated. I also think that it's great that the vinyl windows are being replaced with wood. So I think that is also a great thing to highlight when it goes before the full board.
Great. Okay, Heidi, you've been to many of our meetings. I will send you more information about that, and we have your full packet, so we shouldn't need any more information, but I'll follow up tomorrow and let me know if you have any questions. Do you have any for us right now?
No, I don't. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, moving swiftly along. Fabulous job, everyone. Okay, so our final applicant is for a Columbia Pike Form-Based Code project, and Lauren is on the line with us. Can I also check that Mr. Khan is on the line to represent his project?
I don't think that he is.
Oh,
I think it's just us and Lauren at the moment.
Okay, just us and Lauren. Well, he was not expecting to be on until 7. I did warn him that we usually to come at 6:45, but let's see. I'm not seeing.
I think you put all these temptations.
Well, I'm trying to make these incredibly pleasant to be at. So everyone. Okay, so well, he is not here yet. So we can't really discuss it without him, but could we at least present the information, do you think, without any discussion?
I mean, I think that Lauren could give a background or whatever you were going to say to provide the commissioners with, I don't know
my song and dance. No, that's not a problem. I'm just going to give a bit of a overview history just so that they understand why they're seeing the property. And just for the record, this is Lauren Ferris, principal planner. So the property 2910 Columbia Pike is located in the commercial form-based code area. This property historically was the Arlington hardware building, and it right now is a historic facade. And in the commercial form-based code, originally this building was called, there's 2 historic classifications in form-based code, which is historic structures and historic facades. Originally, this building did have kind of the category of it being a historic structure, therefore the whole building was to be preserved. However, there was a redevelopment project proposed all the way back in 2004, probably a little bit earlier than that. And it was determined that a use permit would be created for this because the HLRB agreed that it was appropriate for this to be considered a historic facade. So historic structure would mean that the whole building is preserved. Historic facade would just mean the facade is preserved. There's not much guidance to what is considered historic facade and how to treat it in the preservation world. As we know, preserving a historic facade is not necessarily a preservation treatment. It's seen as a compromise to try and keep something tangible, as well as allowing for there to be some redevelopment. And some of you are familiar with some more guidance that we've been trying to provide HLRB members and the DRC with how to treat historic facades. If you think back to our Clarendon sector plan update and the original Clarendon sector plan, which was adopted originally in 2006 and then updated in last year, 2022. Which for that, they give guidance that, 10 feet should, you should preserve the historic facade and then allow there to be a step back of 10 feet or 15 feet or 20 feet. We don't have any of that, so it's really up to the DRC and the HLRB to kind of determine how they want to approach preserving historic facades. Now, in the commercial form-based code, it tends to say that there needs to be some type of protection on historic facades. And basically with the approval of the redevelopment project, which is, you can see kind of that curved section to the back of the historic facade, there is a whole new structure built behind it with a lot of height. And this was actually the first commercial form-based code project approved, which was June 2004. And the developer at that time agreed that this building would be preserved. So, not knowing if Mr. Khan has joined us yet.
No, he's not. I've emailed him to see if he's coming. He has not responded.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to kind of go over what you're looking at right now. You can see some remnants of the historic facade. There has been some new elements that have been added. It looks like the first story kind of cladding is like a new type of metal vertical cladding, and that the windows on this property has been these are modern buildings, metal frame fixed on the lower floor, and the second story looks like it's double hung windows. I'm not sure if those are actually working double hung windows, but so that you have some context, why historic facade was seen as a reasonable compromise by the HLRB back in 2004 was because there had been a lot of fire damage to this building, and there was a lot of original material that just was not there anymore. So I think that's why they found that just preserving the historic facade was appropriate. Now, with the materials that you've received from Mr. Khan on what is being proposed for this, is that there would be, it looks like he's proposing to demolish the double side-by-side storefront windows that are on both sides of the main entrance, and wanting to remove those windows, which are replacement windows, but remove those windows and expand all the way down to the ground level by removing some of the brick exterior wall. He is proposing to put in a type of bifold window, which is very popular right now. We know that there are some in the Clarendon area. You see a lot of these in Washington, D.C. And Mr. Khan, I believe, has referenced in some emails between staff that there are other nearby businesses that have these types of windows in them. Unfortunately, I've not been to Columbia Pike in a while, and just by doing some research on Street View, I wasn't able to see that completely, but I would be interested to know which businesses he was pointing out as using these windows. And basically, what Mr. Khan will need is a COA from the HLRB to be able to do this type of work. And the DRC needs to determine if they feel that this is an appropriate change to this historic facade, or if they would like to see some other consideration for what is being proposed. And I could probably keep talking, but I feel like you're getting an idea of what we're seeing and what the new windows would look like. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
The intention is to keep the windows and not make them full height and essentially doors opening to the sidewalk. Is that correct?
No, they're not. They're not doors. They're like bifold windows. So,
Right. So they're going to stay as basically windows. That's what I'm asking, whether they're going to permit access to the street, sidewalk actually. This is narrow sidewalk. It would be nice if a restaurant could have some sort of outdoor seating area.
having walked past this many times because I am a fan of the Lost Dog Cafe, which is just to the side of this business, that is a very narrow sidewalk, and I don't think that there would be a way to do some type of outdoor seating. And I don't know what the code would require if this was to become more of like a actual exit. But from what I understand, it's meant to be that indoor-outdoor type feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what Michael and I noticed was that it appears that the developer's only planning, or the owner, sorry, is planning to only demolish the double windows on either side, but is leaving the final windows. And therefore that original, like you see the furthest windows, it looks like they are going to be retained. So that spacing and also the column next to the door is being retained. So the spacing will be retained, like that verticality. It's just going to be going down to the ground. I did some research. I couldn't find any evidence that this fenestration was original, honestly, but I have no idea. Like, I couldn't find any historic images, but yes, I think that you're right. The sidewalk is extremely narrow. He is not planning on putting tables or anything outside. It's just to provide that feeling and that airflow in a COVID context for a restaurant that otherwise is entirely inside.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. This was a hardware store originally, saw it, and I'm not sure that entirely represents. I would be surprised if the windows were as wide, horizontally, if you will, as they are in the original hardware store. And that whole first story facade, if you will, is basically new, as you indicated. I mean, I think what's historic there really is the second story over the restaurant, if you will. I just find that if you don't do something, this restaurant isn't anywhere near as attractive as it could be as a restaurant, just because of the lack of fresh air and the fact that you can't have any outdoor seating, which would tend to attract more people to the restaurant. So I think this is a reasonably good step to try and make this a little bit more, the restaurant a little bit more attractive to people that use it. And I don't think that first story is really that close to what the hardware store was, and certainly that large expanse of the windows. The width there is, I find that doesn't look right either. I think this is actually an improvement over that mass of windows, a massive one-piece window.
Ms. Meyer, Mr. Davis?
I think I would question opening it up to the floor given the width of the sidewalk. I can understand the need to have operable windows, and I don't know. I know in Ballston, I think it's Hawker's Asian Street Food, has the bifold half level with indoor countertop. I don't know if that is something that was studied to keep the existing the existing window opening. I understand it wasn't a
restaurant.
Hawker's Asian Street Food. It's in Ballston. They have the same bifold window, but instead of a door, it's counter height. But it allows the operability of getting fresh air in and out. And I just question having doors on a narrow sidewalk.
So I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for zoning, but Lauren, this was sent to us from the zoning department. Do you know how they felt about floor to ceiling doors?
No, honestly, I did not get any information from them on that. They were more concerned about if a use permit would be needed, a use permit amendment would be needed for this, but because it's still going to be used for a restaurant, that's not necessary. So the only thing that they wanted to make sure was that the design would be reviewed and either approved or denied by the HLRB. Because I guess the question then is if the DRC is comfortable with the idea of the double storefront windows can be replaced with a bifold, but maybe not have it be from floor to ceiling, or is it keeping within the existing window opening size? So I guess it's kind of, would you be comfortable with one or the other? But I don't think that it can be used as an actual, I'm assuming that you have to determine if it's going to be a door, if it's going to be a window. But I don't have that information.
And I can follow up and find out more from Jose about that, and also from the owner if he's considered the counter height. Mr. Davis, how do you feel about this?
I kind of echo what Rebecca mentioned. I mean, I'm a little bit reticent to sort of have the, I mean, to sort of have the sort of full height open sort of doors on a very narrow sidewalk. I get the motivation why, but I think it's a little bit funny with a very narrow sidewalk. I think it would make more sense to me personally just to maybe have that sort of counter height you know, wide open windows there. I think that would be a better fit. And also, I mean, I think that it fits more with the sort of historic character of the building. I mean, I take it that these may not be the original window openings even, and definitely not the original windows, but I think that the more blockier, the more solid rhythm of sort of like this sort of the small window, sort of large window door, and then a large window and the small window. That feels more historically sort of appropriate to me as well, instead of having it be all glazed. I mean, it feels a little bit better. So that's all I'll say. I would definitely be okay if they were counter height. I think the full height, I'd have to sort of think about that one a little bit harder, honestly.
Okay. But
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, looking at Google Streets, it looks like the buildings on this block and across the street, restaurants included, all have that solid base. I'm not seeing any that have the floor to ceiling. So I'd just be curious which other buildings the applicant is referencing.
Yeah. And I'd also be curious too if there are any images of the hardware store, I guess, and maybe like in sort of years prior when it was a hardware store too, like what the facade looked like then. Was it more of a solid mass at that point, or just be kind of curious to see that too.
Yeah, I tried to look them up in the historic Columbia Pike photos, but I couldn't find them. So I may follow up with Central Local History to see if they just happen to have any on hand. But we may not, but I will try.
Yeah, I also tried to see how far back Street View went, and it goes back to 2007, right when they were putting up the historic facade as the new building behind it was being constructed. So, and I don't have any in our historic photographs from the project that was being done back then. So
it sounds like this should go forward on the discussion agenda to see in addition to asking for this additional information, it should be discussed by the entire commission.
Well, I just raised the question. I mean, in my opinion, this storefront, if you will, is really a storefront and not a very good front for a restaurant, considering the fact that there's a very narrow sidewalk. And that's really was my concern. I think that as proposed, they're not to be floor to ceiling height. They're proposing, have we got can you show the elevations? Of
yes, it should have come up. I don't, oh, there it is. Okay.
I think the elevations are proposing floor to ceiling height.
Yes. Let's see, can I?
Oh, okay. Well, if they're proposing, no.
There.
Okay,
Yep.
they're proposing floor to ceiling. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say no.
Yeah.
I think this is no longer a historic facade on the first floor in any case, but that's going a bit too far in my opinion. I think if they were maybe 30 inches or 36 inches above the sidewalk before you had a window, the sill would be maybe 36 inches
Okay.
high. That would be more appropriate, but to open this up that way doesn't make a lot of.
So I should go back and ask. It sounds like counter height. You're saying 30 inches. Counter height sounds like unanimously something that the board is more interested in seeing. So if I will go back to the applicant and ask him if he please considered it. I'll use the example you shared, Rebecca, and see if I can get him some images of that to see if, because if, as you said, like Lauren, I don't think he can use them as egress because they're not standard doors. So even if he was, you could use them in an emergency because if they're already open, they probably cannot be used for egress, and therefore it doesn't matter if they're counter height windows or floor level doors because people can't use them anyway.
Yeah, and I can follow up with zoning. I don't think that they would have brought this to my attention and the DRC's attention to review if they if they weren't allowable per zoning standards. So, but I think again, if they were using them like an entry or exit in any way, I think that would be a red flag. So. And we can also follow up with CLH to see if there are any other historic photos or any of our trustee Arlingtonians that sometimes have photos in their own personal collections. But I just want to make sure, since Mr. Khan is not on the call, which I'm assuming he's still not here, that we can provide the guidance that the floor to ceiling bifold windows doesn't seem to be appropriate by the DRC, and would be more open to a counter height bifold window. And I'm assuming, Serena, that we could then just go to him and say if he would be willing to come back to the DRC with maybe another option, that would be more, could then be reviewed by the DRC and then maybe being considered by the full HLRB for discussion.
Well, traditionally, we allow applicants 1 week to amend their application. So if he was willing to do this in the next week, he could go forward to HLRB.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. Sorry.
And I would add, I know we talked about the counter height. I think my personal preference, and I don't know if anyone else has one, for if they were to do the sort of counter height bifold, to keep the existing masonry opening with the 3-foot base.
Right.
That sounds good as well. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm trying to find the demolition plans. Okay, I can't tell.
So like basically the bifold would be the exact same height of what the
Yes.
window is currently.
Well, I was just checking because I don't know if
Correct.
that is brick, so I don't know if we'd be retaining the brick. This may just be studs and some kind of parched cementitious something on the outside, but either way, you're saying you would like to retain the fenestration opening.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think given that the windows aren't original and its current use, I don't have an issue with wanting that ventilation and openness with the street. I just would prefer the opening to stay the same size.
Okay. All right. Okay, well, I will let you know then in the next week when I send out the email whether or not they'll be coming forward. And otherwise, we just have 2 consent agenda items and 1 discussion item. Okay. Thank you all for your discussion. This has been very helpful. This is hence ends our agenda. Perfect. Does anyone have any final questions for the group?
Yeah, one question, Lauren. So was this facade sort of built back, or was it sort of maintained in place while they built the building behind it? How do you know sort of how that was sort of cobbled together, I guess?
I honestly don't know if it got moved around a lot, but just because again, I don't have anything other than the board report from 2004, which is not the detail that we see now. And I'm looking at the construction photos. It looks like it's all still, I'm assuming that it's in the same location that it was.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Because I think that if they were to have it moved back more, they would have done it, especially for wanting to have a wider sidewalk. But then again, I also don't know the developer. It looks like they did a pretty big step back from the historic facade, so they may have also not wanted to lose much of the space that they would like to build on. So fortunately, I don't have a lot of information.
Okay. Well, thanks anyway. Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if no one has any further questions, I'm going to stop recording and end the meeting.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.